The human ship Teguk moved slowly through space toward the massive alien station. Commander Jiho sat in his captain's chair, watching the strange structure grow larger on the screen. The station looked like a giant flower made of metal and crystal, with long arms reaching out in all directions. "First contact," whispered Hyerin, the ship's diplomat. She stood beside Jiho, her hands clasped behind her back. "After all these years of wondering if we were alone." Jiho nodded. "Are you nervous?" "Terrified," Hyerin admitted. "But excited, too." The station called Kepler's Rest was neutral ground. The Galactic Council had built it for meetings between different alien species. Today humans would meet these aliens for the first time. No one knew what to expect. "Docking complete," announced Taman from his position at the controls. The quiet engineer rarely spoke unless necessary, but his work was always perfect. Jiho stood up. "Remember, everyone, we represent all of humanity today. Let's make a good impression." The human delegation walked through the station's corridors. The gravity felt strange, lighter than Earth normal. The walls glowed with soft blue light, and the air smelled like flowers mixed with metal. Other creatures moved through the hallways, but they were nothing like humans. Hyerin tried not to stare at a being that looked like a walking tree. Its bark-like skin rustled as it moved, and small flowers bloomed along its arms. Another creature floated past them, looking like a jellyfish, made of light. It pulsed different colors as it drifted by. "So many different life forms," Doyen said softly. The human scientist carried a small device that recorded everything around them. Each one evolved on a different world. They reached the main meeting hall. The room was enormous, with a dome ceiling that showed the stars outside. Seats of different shapes and sizes filled the space, made for bodies that weren't human. "The humans have arrived," announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere. At once, all conversation in the hall stopped. Hundreds of alien eyes turned to look at the small group of humans. Hyerin felt her heart beat faster, but she kept her face calm and friendly. A tall, thin creature approached them. It looked like a giant insect walking on two legs, with 4 arms and large black eyes. Its skin was green and shiny like a beetle's shell. "I am Vextar, speaker for the council," it said. Its voice sounded like clicking and buzzing, but somehow the words were clear. "You are the ones from the 3rd planet of the Yellow Star?" "Yes," Hyerin said, stepping forward. "I am Hyerin, diplomat of Earth. We are honored to meet you." Vextar's large eyes looked her up and down. So small, so soft-looking. It turned to address the other aliens in the hall. "These are the creatures that learn to send messages through space?" Laughter filled the room, but it didn't sound like human laughter. It was a mix of clicks, whistles, and strange musical notes. Hyerin felt heat rise in her cheeks, but kept smiling. Another creature approached. This one looked like it was made of living crystal, reflecting light in rainbow patterns. When it moved, it made soft, ringing sounds like wind chimes. "I am Morthek," it said, its voice like singing glass. "We scanned your species from your transmission signals. You live only about 100 of your planet's cycles around your star, yes?" "That's correct," Doyen answered. "The average human lifespan is about 70 to 80 years. So short." Morthek sang sadly. "Most council species live for thousands of cycles. How can a species develop civilization with such brief lives?" More laughter filled the hall. Hyerin noticed that none of it sounded friendly. The aliens seemed to think humans were some kind of joke. "Your bones are very thin," Vextar continued, looking at readings on a device. "And your skin has no natural armor. How do you survive on your world?" "We're quite adaptable," Jiho said calmly. "Humans have lived in almost every environment on Earth." "Earth must be a very gentle world," commented another alien that looked like a large slug covered in spikes. "These creatures could not survive anywhere dangerous." Nari, the ship's security chief, stepped closer to the group. She was shorter than the others, but something about the way she moved made the nearby aliens step back slightly. "We adapt to what we need," she said simply. A creature that looked like a floating brain in a glass bubble drifted over to them. "I am Krendok, Council scientist. I study new species. It paused, examining them with large, wet eyes. You are very primitive. No natural weapons, no armor, no advanced physical abilities. How did you even develop space travel? Hard work and determination, Hieron replied. Remarkable, Krendok said, but not like it meant something good. A species this weak learning to leave their planet. You must have had much help from others, yes? No, Jiho said firmly. We developed our technology ourselves. The aliens in the hall began talking, among themselves in their strange languages. Hieron caught words that the translation system turned into impossible, primitive, and weak. Vextar clicked its mandibles together. The Council will need to determine what classification to give your species. Based on initial observations, you appear to be non-threatening biological entities. What does that mean? Hieron asked. It means you pose no danger to Council species or territory, Mortek explained. Your world will likely be designated as a nature preserve. We may allow limited contact for study purposes. A nature preserve? Jiho's voice remained calm, but Hieron could hear anger underneath. Earth is our homeworld. We're a sovereign species. More alien laughter filled the hall. Sovereign? Vextar clicked. You have one small ship and a few dozen of your kind. Here, you live short lives on a single world. How can you claim sovereignty? We have 4 billion people on our world, Hieron said. 4 billion? The slug creature made a dismissive sound. The Korth Empire alone has trillions of citizens across thousands of worlds. Your entire species is barely a single city's worth of citizens. Wubin, the ship's medic, had been quiet until now. He stepped forward with his medical scanner. Perhaps we could share information about our biology. Learning about each other might help with understanding. Krendok's eyes brightened with interest. Yes, I would very much like to study your primitive physiology. Such weak creatures reaching space, it defies logic. The meeting continued for several hours. Each time the humans tried to explain their capabilities or achievements, the aliens found new reasons to dismiss them as weak and primitive. They measured human strength, speed, and endurance, comparing them unfavorably to other galactic species. As the day ended, Vextar made an announcement. The Council has decided. Humans will be classified as protected primitive species. Your world will be marked as off-limits for development, but open for scientific study. This isn't what we came here for, Hieron said quietly to Jiho as they prepared to leave. No, Jiho agreed, but maybe it's better they underestimate us. For now. Walking back to their ship, the humans could still hear alien laughter echoing through the halls behind them. The second day of meetings began with a formal dinner in the station's great hall. Long tables stretched across the room, each designed for different types of alien bodies. The humans sat at a small table made for bipedal species, though the chairs were still too tall for them. Strange foods covered the tables in colors that didn't exist on Earth. Some dishes glowed, others seemed to move on their own, and a few made soft musical sounds when touched. The smells were unlike anything human noses had ever experienced. This is fascinating, Doyen said, examining a plate of what looked like purple crystals. His scientific mind was amazed by everything around them. Each species must have completely different nutritional needs. Hieron picked carefully at something that resembled blue pasta. She had eaten nothing but emergency rations since arriving, afraid that alien food might poison humans. The translation device had warned that most foods here would be toxic to human biology. Vex quote, Tar approached their table carrying a drink that bubbled and changed colors. Are you not hungry, humans? The food not good enough for you? It looks wonderful, Hieron said politely, but our biology is probably too different. We wouldn't want to accidentally poison ourselves. Several aliens at nearby tables turned to listen. Morthek's crystal body chimed with what sounded like amusement. Poison? These are basic nutritional compounds. Any properly evolved species can process them. I'm sure they're fine for your biology, Mira said gently. The ship's medical officer had been monitoring the air quality since they arrived. But humans evolved differently. We need specific things to survive. Krendok floated over in his glass bubble, always eager to study the strange humans. What do you mean specific things? Food is food, energy is energy. Doyen looked up from the device he was using to analyze the air. Well, for example, we need to breathe a very specific mixture of gases. The atmosphere here is actually quite difficult for us. Difficult? Vextar clicked its mandibles together. The station atmosphere is standard council mixture, safe for all civilized species. Safe for you, yes, Doyen nodded. But humans evolved breathing something quite different. He held up his small breathing mask, which all the humans wore. Our home atmosphere is about 78% nitrogen and 21% oxygen. The conversation at nearby tables stopped. Several aliens turned to stare at the humans with expressions that were hard to read on their strange faces. 21% oxygen. Krendok's voice rose higher. That cannot be correct. Your translation device must be malfunctioning. No, it's right, Mira confirmed. Earth's atmosphere has very high oxygen content, plus other trace gases that most species would find harmful. The slug creature from yesterday slithered closer to their table. Impossible. Oxygen at those levels would be corrosive, highly dangerous. Not to us, Doyen said, pulling off his breathing mask for a moment. This is what we call normal air on our world. He took a deep breath of the station's atmosphere and immediately put the mask back on. Though I admit your air mixture makes me feel a bit dizzy. More aliens gathered around the human table. Their various forms of communication created a buzzing, clicking, singing cacophony as they talked among themselves. You breathe poison gas? Asked a creature that looked like a walking plant. Its leaves rustled with what might have been concern or disbelief. It's not poison to us, Taman said quietly. It's what we need to live. Morthek's crystalline body pulsed with different colors. The mathematics do not work. Oxygen at those concentrations would break down organic compounds too quickly. Nothing could survive. Humans do, Hyeron said simply. Vex Quotar stepped back from their table. You are saying your species evolved in an atmosphere that would be toxic to most council races? If you put it that way, yes, Wubin answered. But it doesn't seem toxic to us, it's just home. The great hall fell silent except for the soft humming of the station systems. Hundreds of alien eyes stared at the small group of humans sitting calmly at their table. What else? Krendok asked, his voice barely a whisper. What else is different about your world? Doyen looked confused by the sudden interest. Well, lots of things, I suppose. Earth has pretty strong gravity compared to what we've seen here. The electromagnetic radiation from our sun is quite intense. We have frequent electrical storms that can be seen from space. Electrical storms? The plant creature's leaves turned a different color. Visible from orbit? Oh yes. Mira nodded. Lightning strikes Earth's surface millions of times every day. It's quite beautiful from space, actually. And the radiation? Morthek's voice was barely audible, like wind through distant chimes. Our sun puts out a lot of energy across many spectrums, Doyen explained. Ultraviolet, infrared, even some gamma radiation. Earth's magnetic field and atmosphere protect us from the worst of it, but we still get quite a bit. Quite a bit of radiation that would kill us, Vextar said slowly. I suppose so, Doyen agreed. But human skin adapted to handle it. We actually need some radiation exposure to stay healthy. The silence stretched longer. Alien faces showed expressions the humans couldn't interpret, but something had changed in the room's atmosphere. The gravity? Asked the slug creature, its voice much quieter than before. Earth gravity is about average for us, Taman said. Though this station's gravity feels very light, we have to be careful not to jump too high or move too fast. How much gravity? Krendok asked. Doyen checked his scanner. Earth standard is about 9.8 meters per second squared. This station feels like maybe 4 or 5. More silence. The humans looked around at the alien faces surrounding them, confused by the sudden change in mood. Are we saying something wrong? Hyeron asked gently. No, Vextar said, its voice strange. No, you are saying everything correctly. That is the problem. I don't understand, Hiran replied. More, S crystal body had stopped changing colors. Entirely. It now glowed a steady pale blue. You are describing a world that should not be able to support complex life. But it obviously does, Mira pointed out. We're proof of that. Yes, Krendok said faintly. You are indeed. The conversation died completely after that. Aliens began leaving their tables, talking quietly among themselves in their own languages. The translation device caught fragments. Impossible. Death world. How can they be so calm? Soon only the humans remained in the great hall, sitting alone at their small table surrounded by abandoned alien food. Did we say something wrong? Doyen asked, looking around at the empty room. I don't think so, Jiho said thoughtfully. But I think we said something that scared them. Scared them? Hiran looked puzzled. We were just talking about Earth. Home. Yes, Nari said quietly, her security training making her notice things others missed. But maybe what we call home they call something else. Like what? Mira asked. Nari stood up from her chair and looked around the empty hall. I think they might call it hell. Outside the hall's windows, the stars continued to shine peacefully, unaware that the balance of power in the galaxy was beginning to shift. Krendok had not slept since the dinner. His floating brain bubble moved restlessly through his private laboratory aboard the station, checking and rechecking his equipment. The humans had to be lying, or their translation devices were broken. Nothing could live in the conditions they described. Computer, verify translation accuracy for yesterday's human communications, he commanded. Translation accuracy, 99.7%, the station's computer replied in its calm voice. All human statements were accurately converted. Krendok's large eyes blinked slowly. He had hoped for a different answer. Run analysis on human atmospheric requirements based on their statements. Numbers filled the air around him in glowing displays. The computer's analysis confirmed everything the humans had said. 21% oxygen, high radiation levels, strong gravity, electrical storms that could be seen from space. This is impossible, Krendok muttered to himself. Run galactic database search for worlds matching these conditions. The computer was quiet, for several minutes searching through data from millions of worlds across the galaxy. Finally, it spoke again. Search complete. No inhabited worlds found matching these atmospheric conditions. 47 worlds found with similar conditions, all classified as extreme hazard death worlds. No complex life detected on any of them. Krendok felt something cold move through his nervous system. Show me classification details for extreme hazard death worlds. Information filled the air around him. Worlds where the atmosphere would dissolve most known forms of life. Planets, where radiation levels would cook organic tissue in hours. Places where gravity would crush most galactic species flat. The galactic database was clear. Such worlds could not support intelligent life. But they're here, Krendok whispered. They're here, and they're calm, and they call it home. He activated his communicator. Vextar, Morthek, come to Laboratory 7 immediately. Bring your best scanning equipment. 20 minutes later, the three alien scientists stood in the laboratory surrounded by the most advanced analysis equipment in the galaxy. Vextar's mandibles clicked nervously as Morthek's crystal body chimed with anxiety. You called this meeting, in the middle of sleep cycle, Vextar complained. This had better be important. The humans, Krendok said simply. We need to scan their homeworld now. Why? Morthek's voice carried harmonics of confusion. We already know it's a primitive world with weak creatures. That's what I thought too, Krendok replied. But I've been analyzing their statements from yesterday. Computer, show them the atmospheric analysis. The data appeared in the air between them. Both aliens went very still as they read the numbers. This cannot be accurate, Vextar said after a long pause. That's what I thought, Krendok agreed. So let's scan their world and prove them wrong. They activated the station's most powerful deep space scanners and pointed them toward Earth's location. The scanning would take hours, but these were the same instruments used to analyze potential new worlds for colonization. If the humans were lying, the scans would show the truth. While they waited, Krendok pulled up the humans' ship data. Look. At this, their vessel shows signs of operating in high radiation environments. The hull composition includes materials we only use for deep space exploration near dangerous stars. Protective equipment, Vextar suggested. They must need extra shielding because they're weak. Maybe, Krendok said, but he didn't sound convinced. More Thek floated closer to the data displays. Their ship's gravity generators are set to produce 9.8 meters per second squared. That's what they said their homeworld has. So they like heavy gravity. Vextar clicked dismissively. Some species do. No. Morthek's voice was very quiet. That level of gravity would crush my crystal matrix. It would break most of our physical forms. The three aliens stared at each other in growing unease. None of them wanted to voice what they were all thinking. Scanning complete, the computer announced. The data from Earth appeared around them in stunning detail. Atmospheric composition, radiation levels, gravitational measurements, electromagnetic activity, weather patterns. Everything was exactly as the humans had described. Impossible, Vextar whispered. Kren S eyes were wide with disbelief. Computer, compare these readings to the galactic database of habitable worlds. Earth's atmospheric composition matches no known habitable worlds, the computer replied. Closest matches are classified as Death World Category 5, Extreme Hazard, to all known life forms. But they live there, Morthek said faintly. 4 billion of them. Computer, Krendok's voice shook slightly. What would happen if my species tried to breathe Earth's atmosphere? Oxygen toxicity would begin within minutes. Complete system breakdown within 1 hour. Probability of survival, 0%. And, my species, our Vextar asked. Exoskeleton would dissolve in the high oxygen environment within 3 hours. Internal organs would fail before that. Probability of survival, 0%. Morthek didn't ask. His crystal matrix would shatter from the gravity before the atmosphere could kill him. Show weather data, Krendok commanded, his voice barely audible. Earth quotas weather patterns appeared before them. Hurricanes with wind speeds that could tear apart buildings. Tornadoes that moved across the landscape like destroyers. Lightning. Storms that released more electrical energy in minutes than most civilizations used in a year. And they live in this, Vextar said, not really asking. Computer, are there any other worlds in the galactic database with similar conditions that support life? Negative. Earth appears to be unique in supporting complex life in such extreme conditions. The three aliens stood in silence, staring at the data floating around them. Everything they thought they knew about the universe had just changed. Call. The Council, Krendok said finally. Emergency session, full membership. What should I tell them? Vextar asked. Kren, quote. Doc looked at the readings from Earth one more time. A world that should be empty, sterile, lifeless. Instead, it teemed with billions of creatures that called it home. Tell them we made a mistake, he said quietly. Tell them we need to reclassify the humans. To what classification? Morthek asked. Kren, quote. Doc was quiet for a long time, staring at the impossible data from the impossible world where impossible creatures lived and thrived. I don't know, he admitted finally. We don't have a classification for this. Within the hour, emergency signals were being sent across the galaxy. Council members on hundreds of worlds received the same message. Emergency session required. Topic: Human reclassification. Priority: maximum. For the first time in galactic history, a species was being reconsidered, not because they were more advanced than initially thought, but because they were more terrifying than anyone had imagined possible. The emergency council session filled the Great Hall with more alien species than the humans had ever seen. Representatives from across the galaxy had arrived within hours, their ships clogging the space around the station. The air hummed with nervous conversation in dozens of languages. The humans sat at their small table, confused by the sudden attention. They had been asked to attend, but given no explanation for the emergency meeting. "Do you know what this is about?" Hyarin whispered to Jiho. "No idea," he replied, watching the agitated aliens around them. "But something has them very upset." Vextar called the session to order, his mandibles clicking with nervous energy. "Council members, we have discovered something about the human species that requires immediate attention." Krendok's bubble floated to the center of the hall. "Yesterday, the humans made several statements about their homeworld. We have verified these statements with deep space scanning equipment." The hall fell silent. Every alien eye focused on the small group of humans. "The world they call Earth," Krendok continued, "has atmospheric conditions that match our database classification of Death World Category 5. Gasps, clicks, and musical notes of shock filled the hall. Several aliens moved away from the human table. "That's impossible," called out a representative who looked like a giant flower. "Nothing lives on Death Worlds." "That's what we thought," Morthek chimed sadly. "But 4 billion humans live there, and they call it normal." Hyunwoo, the ship's military advisor, leaned forward in his chair. He had been quiet during most of the meetings, observing and listening. "Is there a problem with our world?" "A problem?" Vextar's voice rose several octaves. "Your world should not exist. Life like yours should not be possible." "But we do exist," Mira said gently. "We're sitting right here." "Yes," Krendok whispered. "You are. And that changes everything." A representative who looked like a walking tree branch raised one limb. "What exactly are the atmospheric conditions on this Earth?" Doyen pulled out his scanner, happy to share scientific data. 21% oxygen, 78% nitrogen with traces of carbon dioxide, water vapor, and noble gases. The tree being's leaves turned brown and began falling. 21% oxygen would burn through my bark in minutes. "The gravity?" asked a slug-like creature. 9.8 meters per second squared, Taman replied. Several smaller aliens made sounds of distress. "That would crush us flat," one squeaked. "Radiation levels?" This came from a being made of what looked like flowing mercury. Wubin consulted his medical scanner. "Our sun produces significant electromagnetic radiation across multiple spectrums. Earth's ozone layer filters some of it, but we still receive substantial amounts daily." "You live under constant radiation bombardment?" The mercury being's voice was full of horror. "We need some sun exposure to stay healthy," Sujin said, speaking for the first time. The ship's fitness specialist was young and athletic, moving with a fluid grace that had caught alien attention before. "Vitamin D synthesis requires ultraviolet radiation." "You require radiation to survive?" Krendok's eyes were huge with disbelief. "Small amounts," Wubin confirmed. "Humans evolved under these conditions. Our bodies adapted." "Adapted," repeated Morthek, the word ringing like a funeral bell. "What about weather patterns?" Vexitar asked, though he seemed afraid of the answer. "Quite varied," Doyen said cheerfully. "Hurricanes, tornadoes, thunderstorms, blizzards. Earth has very dynamic weather systems." "Hurricanes?" The flower being was now completely pale. "Moving atmospheric disturbances?" "With wind speeds up to 300 kilometers per hour, Youngsu added. The ship's strategist had been taking notes throughout the meeting, analyzing alien reactions, though most are much smaller. "And you survive these?" asked the mercury being. "Build sturdy houses," Hyarin said simply. "And we've learned to predict weather patterns fairly well. Some humans actually chase storms for fun," Sujin mentioned casually. "Tornado watching is a popular hobby in some regions." The hall erupted in shocked sounds. Several aliens backed away from the human table. "For fun?" Vextar clicked frantically. "You pursue deadly atmospheric phenomena for entertainment? They're not deadly if you're careful," Sujin shrugged. Humans do lots of dangerous things for recreation. Mountain climbing, deep-sea diving, skydiving from aircraft. Skydiving? The tree being's remaining leaves were now falling like rain. You throw yourselves from high altitudes deliberately? With parachutes, Hyunwoo said calmly. Though some humans do extreme sports without safety equipment, free climbing, base jumping, swimming with predatory sea creatures. Predatory sea creatures? Krendok's voice was barely a whisper. Sharks mostly, Mira explained. Though some people swim with larger predators, it's considered exciting. Your world has large predators? The slug creature was now mostly hidden, behind a larger alien. Oh yes, Nari said, her security training making her naturally aware of threats. Creatures with claws, teeth, venom, electrical attacks. Land predators, sea predators, aerial predators. Humans learned to defend against all of them. How? Asked Morthek. Tools, weapons, strategy, teamwork, Hyunwoo listed methodically. Humans are persistence hunters. We don't give up. We track prey across vast distances, wear them down, work together to bring down creatures much larger than ourselves. You hunt creatures larger than you? Vextar was now standing much farther from the human table. Historically, yes, Hyunwoo nodded. Early humans hunted giant mammals, massive predators, dangerous herbivores. Anything that threatened human communities was eliminated or driven away. And now? The Mercury being's voice shook. Now we mostly protect other species from extinction, Hyerin said diplomatically. But humans retain the same hunting instincts. Show them, Youngsu said quietly to Sujin. Show them what? Sujin asked. Your reflexes. Sujin looked confused, but stood up. I don't understand. Youngsu tossed his datapad toward her without warning. Sujin's hand snapped out, catching it smoothly before it could fall. The movement was so fast, several aliens jumped backward. Normal human reaction time, Youngsu explained calmly. Evolved to respond to sudden threats. How fast? Krendok asked faintly. About 150 milliseconds for visual stimuli, Wubin said. Faster for audio or tactile responses. It's necessary when you live around large predators. Sujin, still confused by the attention, casually stretched her arms above her head. Several aliens flinched at the sudden movement. Your physical capabilities? Asked the tree being. Sujin runs marathons for fun, Mira said proudly. 42 kilometers at sustained pace. Impossible, breathed Vextar. I can show you the medal, Sujin offered, reaching into her pocket. Half the aliens in the hall stepped backward. No, Krendok said quickly. No sudden movements, please. Sujin froze, her hand half in her pocket. Did I do something wrong? The humans looked around at the hall full of aliens who were now watching them, like they were dangerous predators ready to attack at any moment. No, Vextar said very carefully. You did nothing wrong. That is exactly the problem. I don't understand, Yeren said. More thick S crystal body pulsed once, very slowly. You are exactly what you appear to be. Creatures evolved to survive in conditions that would kill any of us. Creatures who hunt for sport, run vast distances for entertainment, and throw yourselves from great heights for fun. You live on a death world, Krendok added quietly, and you call it home. The humans looked at each other, finally beginning to understand why the aliens seemed so frightened. Are you afraid of us? Jiho asked gently. The hall was silent for a long moment. Finally, Vextar answered with brutal honesty. Yes, he said. We are very afraid of you. The silence stretched across the great hall like a physical thing. Hundreds of alien beings stared at the small group of humans who sat calmly at their table, completely unaware of the terror they had just inspired. Hyerin broke the quiet first. We're not here to hurt anyone, she said gently. We came looking for friends, for knowledge, for peaceful contact with other intelligent species. Peaceful, repeated Vextar, his mandibles twitching. You say peaceful, But you are creatures who hunt for sport and swim with predators for entertainment. Those are recreational activities, Jiho explained patiently. Humans enjoy challenges. It doesn't mean we're violent toward other intelligent species. But you could be, whispered the Mercury being from the far side of the hall. The humans looked at each other, uncertain how to respond. Finally, Hyunwoo spoke up. His military background gave him understanding of threat assessment that the others lacked. Any species could be violent, he said calmly. The question is whether we choose to be. Humans have learned to control our aggressive instincts. We use them for protection and competition, not conquest. Competition? Krendok's voice squeaked. Sports, games, business, academic achievement, Sujin explained. We compete with each other in constructive ways. It makes us stronger as a species. You compete for fun, Mortek chimed in, growing horror. Even your entertainment is based on conflict. Friendly conflict, Mira corrected. Humans need challenges to stay mentally and physically healthy, but we've learned to create artificial challenges instead of real ones. A new alien entered the hall, one the humans hadn't seen before. It looked like a massive spider made of silver metal, moving on 8 delicate legs. When it spoke, its voice sounded like bells ringing. I am Zeraphine, military commander of the Outer Rim Defense Force, it announced. I came as soon as I received the emergency signal. It looked at the humans with multiple black eyes. These are the creatures from the death world. Yes, Vextar confirmed. Zeraphine moved closer to the human table, studying them carefully. They look harmless enough. That's what we thought, Krendok said miserably. What changed your assessment? Zeraphine asked. Instead of answering, Morthek projected the data from Earth into the air above the hall. Seraphine's multiple eyes tracked across the readings quickly. Fascinating, she said after a moment. A world that should be uninhabitable, yet supports billions of these creatures. She looked directly at the humans. How many of you are there? About 8 billion on Earth, Hieron replied, plus colonies on our moon and Mars. Colonies? Seraphine's voice rose. You have spread to other worlds? Just in our solar system, Doyen said. Though we have plans for interstellar expansion now that we know other intelligent species exist. Plans, repeated Seraphine thoughtfully. What kind of plans? Youngsu had been quiet during most of the exchange, but now he leaned forward. Exploration primarily, scientific research, cultural exchange. He paused, considering his words carefully. Perhaps trade agreements with friendly species. And if you encounter unfriendly species? Seraphine asked. The question hung in the air like a challenge. The humans looked at each other uncertainly. We would prefer to avoid conflict, Hieron said diplomatically. But you would defend yourselves if necessary? Seraphine pressed. Of course, Nari replied without hesitation. Any species would defend itself. Yes, Seraphine agreed, but most species couldn't. Most species evolved on gentle worlds where cooperation was more important than combat. Your species evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill you. That's a bit of an exaggeration, Wubin protested. Is it? Seraphine moved around, their table examining them from different angles. You breathe poison gas, live under constant radiation, survive in crushing gravity, and consider deadly weather patterns normal. What else would you call such a world? Home, said Taemin quietly. The single word hit the hall like a shockwave. Several aliens actually fled through the exits. Yes, Seraphine said with something that might have been respect. Home. A death. World that you call home and defend as family. She paused in her circling. Tell me, humans, have your species ever fought wars? The question created uncomfortable silence among the human delegation. They all knew the answer, but none wanted to be the first to say it. Yes, Hyunwoo finally admitted. Humans have a long history of warfare. Against what enemies? Seraphine asked. Against each other mostly, he replied quietly. The remaining aliens in the hall went completely still. Even the soft humming of the station's system seemed muted. "You fight your own species?" Vextar's voice was barely audible. "We used to," Hieron said quickly. "We've mostly moved beyond that now. We've learned to settle disputes peacefully." "Mostly," Seraphine noted, picking up on the qualifier. "Humans still have conflicts," Hyunwoo admitted. "But we try to resolve them without large-scale violence. We've learned that cooperation is more beneficial than conquest." "But you retain the capability for war," Seraphine observed. "Yes," he said simply. "Against creatures as dangerous as yourselves." "Yes." "And you?" "One." The humans looked confused by this line of questioning. "One what?" Jiho asked. "The wars against your own kind," Seraphine explained. "Someone won, someone lost. Which means some of you are better at warfare than others. Which means you continued to evolve your combat abilities even after achieving intelligence." The implications of this statement sank in slowly. The humans realized what the alien commander was truly asking. "You're wondering if humans are the apex predators of our world," Youngsu said with sudden understanding. "Are you?" Seraphine asked. Directly. The humans looked at each other. None of them had ever thought of humanity in quite those terms before. "I suppose we are," Mira said slowly. "There are no natural predators that actively hunt adult humans. We're at the top of our food chain." "The apex predators of a death world," Seraphine said softly, "who learn to hunt each other and then learn to stop." She moved back to address the entire hall. "Do you understand what this means?" The remaining aliens were very quiet. "It means," Seraphine continued, "that these creatures have already fought the most dangerous opponents they could possibly face. Other members of their own species. And they survived. And they learned. And they evolved beyond the need for such conflict. But they could still fight," Vextar whispered. "Oh yes," Seraphine agreed. "They could fight. Against anything. And probably win." She turned back to the humans. "I formally apologize for the Council's initial assessment of your species. We made a grave error in judgment." "You don't need to apologize," Hieron said graciously. "It was an understandable mistake." "No," Seraphine replied firmly. "It was not. We looked at you and saw weakness where we should have seen strength. We saw primitives where we should have seen survivors. We saw easy targets where we should have seen the most dangerous species we had ever encountered." "We're not dangerous to you," Jiho insisted. "Not by choice," Seraphine agreed. "And that makes you even more terrifying. You are apex predators who choose to be gentle. Warriors who prefer peace. Survivors who offer friendship to those who insulted you." She addressed the hall again. "The Council will immediately reclassify humanity as a Class 1 sovereign species. All previous decisions regarding their world are hereby reversed. Earth is to be recognized as human territory, protected by the same laws that govern all Council homeworlds." "And our application for Council membership?" Hieron asked hopefully. Seraphine S multiple eyes focused on her. "Will be fast-tracked for immediate approval. The galaxy needs allies like humanity, especially if we ever encounter truly hostile species." "Hostile species?" Doyen asked with scientific curiosity. "The universe is large," Seraphine explained. "Someday we may encounter species that are actually aggressive, actually dangerous, actually hostile to peaceful cooperation." She looked at the humans with what might have been gratitude. "When that day comes, we will be very glad to have friends who evolved on a death world." As the session ended and aliens began filing out of the hall, Youngsu leaned over to whisper to Jiho. "I think we just became the galaxy's insurance policy," he said quietly. Jiho nodded, watching the aliens give their table a much wider berth than before. "Could be worse," he replied. "At least now they're afraid of us for the right reasons." Outside, the station's windows, Earth's yellow sun continued to shine in the distance. A normal star warming a normal world where normal creatures called home a place that no one else in the galaxy could survive.